Welcome to the Maundy Thursday for Trinity Church of Austin. We're glad that you're here with us on this solemn occasion in Holy Week, a time of reflection, a time to deliberately allow ourselves to let the shadows fall around us, to name them, to enter into the darkness. This evening, as a meditation to begin our service, I'd like to share a poem called The Dark Night of the Soul. It's a poem that many of us, I think, can relate to in this time of quarantine, in this time of anxiety and fear. It's by Juan de la Cruz, or as we know him in English, John of the Cross, who lived in Avila, Spain from 1542 to 1591. He was persecuted by the church and the state for his views, his particularly inclusive and welcoming views, his understanding of God. You might call him a creation mystic in the 16th century, and saw divinity as a part of everything, and often referred to God and to Jesus as a lover in his poetry, much like Rumi did. And this is a translation by the singer and poet Lorena McKennitt. Upon a darkened night, the flame of love was burning in my breast, and by a lantern bright, I fled my house while all in quiet rest. Shrouded by the night, and by the secret stair I quickly fled. The veil concealed my eyes, while all within lay quiet as the dead. O night, thou was my guide. O night, more loving than the rising sun. O night that joined the lover to the beloved one, transforming each of them into the other. Upon that misty night, in secrecy, beyond such mortal sight, without a guide or light, than that which burned so deeply in my heart, that fire 'twas led me on, and shone more bright than of the midday sun, to where he waited still. It was a place where no one else could come. Within my pounding heart, which kept itself entirely for him, he fell into his sleep. Beneath the cedars, all my love I gave, from o'er the fortress walls. The wind would his hair against his brow, and with its smoothest hand caressed my every sense it would allow. I lost myself to him, and laid my face upon my lover's breast, and care and grief grew dim, as in the morning's mist became the light. There they dimmed amongst the lilies fair. There they dimmed amongst the lilies fair. There they dimmed amongst the lilies fair. Amen.
Let us sing together this Taizé piece, Come and Fill Our Hearts. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Your whole world, O God, is holy. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Amen. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Your whole world, O God, is holy. Come and and fill our hearts with your peace. Amen. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Your whole world, O God, is holy. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Amen. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Your whole world, O God, is holy. Come and fill our hearts with your peace. Amen.
Now is the time for our offerings. This is Maundy Thursday, and I'm thinking of how we are bound together as a beloved community. In this time of COVID-19 anxiety and physical separation, it's a wonder to see the ways in which those of this community reaffirm our connections to one another and to the broader community. Your offerings are crucial at this time. Please go to trinitychurchofaustin.org and click on the Support tab, or download Give Plus from iTunes or Google Play, or text your offering to 512-967-0292 and use the keyword SPECIAL for our Easter offering. Please send Trinity your most generous offerings.
Good evening. We're Bob and Light German, members of Trinity. We wish you all well. Here are our readings. The first one is from John 13:30-35. After washing the disciples' feet, breaking bread, and sharing it with all, including Judas left, and it was night. Jesus said to them, "Little children, I am with you only a little longer. You will look for me, and as I said to the Judeans, so now I say to you, where I am going, you cannot come. I give you a new mandate, that you love one another. Just as I have loved you, you also should love one another. By this everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you have love for one another."
Now, Genesis 22, 1-4, 9-14. After these things, God tested Abraham. God said to him, "Abraham." And Abraham said, "Here I am." God said, "Take your son, your only son Isaac, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains that I shall show you." So Abraham rose early in the morning, saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and his son Isaac too. He cut the wood for the burnt offering and set out and went to the place in the distance that God had shown him. On the third day, Abraham looked up and saw the place far away. When they came to the place that God had shown him, Abraham built an altar there and laid the wood in order. He bound his son Isaac and laid him on the altar, on top of the wood. Then Abraham reached out his hand and took his knife to kill his son. But the messenger of the Lord called to him from heaven and said, "Abraham, Abraham!" And Abraham said, "Here I am." The angel said, "Do not lay your hand on the boy or do anything to him. For now I know that you fear God, since you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me." And Abraham looked up and saw a ram caught in the thicket by his horns. Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up as a burnt offering instead of his son. So Abraham called the place, "The Lord will provide."
And now back to the Gospel of John, John 18, 1 through 16. After Jesus had spoken the new commandment, he went out with his disciples across the Kidron Valley to a place where there was a garden, which he and his disciples entered. Now Judas also knew the place because Jesus often met there with his disciples. So Judas brought a detachment of soldiers together with police from the chief priests and the Pharisees, and they came there with lanterns and torches and weapons. Then Jesus, knowing all that was to happen to him, came forward and asked them, "Whom are you looking for?" They answered, "Jesus of Nazareth." Jesus replied, "Ego, I am." Judas was standing with them. When Jesus said to them, "Ego, I am," they stepped back and fell to the ground.
Hey everybody. For those of you who are new, my name is Gus, and I'm the intern minister at Trinity. And last fall when I worked with Sid to set one of my goals as the development of technology for streaming media online, I didn't know that I was going to be able to complete that objective in full. So I wanted to start off with a bit of framing, since I want to tackle something I think is pretty important. I don't want you to think that in any way I'm some sort of fundamentalist or literalist Christian. I'm a scientist and an engineer, and I hope that I stay firmly grounded in evidence-based approaches to truth. And I know that there are many of us here, myself included, that are struggling with rejection from Christian communities. I think there are deep and important truths in these stories, in an important way. I want to help people who have been exiled from their faith traditions to be able to reclaim the power of their mythological symbols and the truths that they point to. I want to heal the division between science and religion, and I believe this can be done by realizing that they are not separate worlds, but one and the same. So with that up front, I'm probably like many of you, in that I'm constantly stressed out and constantly trying to grab a sense of control in this pandemic. I've got my 4 young boys who depend on me and my wife, and it seems like even if you do work from home, you get very little credit for also needing to be a school teacher full-time, as well as providing enriching child care to the young ones who really need all your attention. And at the same time, I still have all the assignments for my seminary classes, and my wife still has meetings with her clients and her coworkers. And a lot of them give just lip service to what's going on. I mean, because they still need to run their businesses, of course, and keep them afloat. Everybody's struggling right now. And I just miss tacos at Torchy's and in-person church services on Sundays. Folks, this sucks. In a way, it's like an angel of death is moving over the earth. And all we can do is huddle in our homes and hope it doesn't take our loved ones. It seems like this Passover season is less of a remembrance and more of a reenactment. We keep hearing on the news the worst is yet to come. And here in Holy Week, that's what Maundy Thursday is. The worst is yet to come. There's blood at the end of this week. There's blood on the cross and blood in the hospitals in New York City and elsewhere. There's blood at the end of next week and probably, certainly, for a long time after that. We'll come out of this mostly intact, but I think transformed into something new. This event is going to scar all of us for the rest of our lives. It's going to change the way we view social relationships. I'm hoping it'll change them for the better. I hope that this horrible event will push us towards a greater sense of our interdependence on one another. Hopefully this period of isolation will bring a new perspective on the importance of hugs and handshakes and humor. I'm thankful for the opportunity to be with you here today. Today is Maundy Thursday. The word Maundy comes from the same root as the word for mandate and refers to the evening before Christ's crucifixion and his mandate for us to love one another. That was the first reading that Light shared with us just a moment ago. But what is this word that we translate as love? The Greek word, as many of you know, is agape. This noun speaks to a certain kind of relationality. It's the translation of this word to just love that I think is the biggest failing of the church today. In English, this word just gets flattened into all the other kinds of relationality. But it's very specific, and it's definitely not the warm, gooey, desiring love that I think we get when we read love your enemies and love one another. And that is what drives and I think this is what drives the buddy-Christ personal relationship that dominates much of Christianity today. I chose for the second reading the story of God's mandate to Abraham to kill his beloved son, Isaac. Now, we hate this story. I mean, we hate it. This seems like some backward Old Testament, patriarchal, dominating, obedience to authority, repugnant, ancient story from an ignorant group of uneducated nomads who dealt in child sacrifice. What kind of loving God would demand this? Maybe that was a harsher God of the Old Testament, huh? But don't forget that those who told the Christian story replaced Abraham with God in this narrative, and Jesus with Isaac. I picked this story for the following reason. This story of Abraham's sacrifice is the first place that the word agape appears in the Bible. Abraham waited his whole life for God to give him and his wife Sarah a child. God promised on many occasions, but eventually Abraham and Sarah just gave up hope. Their bodies were too old and too tired, and it was at that point of hopelessness that Sarah conceived. And she named her son Isaac, which in Hebrew means laughter, because what else is a 90-ish-year-old new mother going to do? And in the Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, the author of John read that Abraham had agape for his son, his beloved son. And then God asked him to go into the land of Moriah, which means seen by God, and to give Isaac up as a burnt offering, to let go of this person that he had waited his whole life for, his only son, his sense of immortality, his sense of self. Solemnly, Abraham traveled for 3 days and went up on that mountain and raised the knife up in the air. He let go of his son. He didn't grasp for anything but the handle of the knife. It sounds horrifying, but it was only at that point that God reached out and held back his hand, and he could truly know his son, whose name was laughter. There is a death and resurrection in that story, too, and it takes place over 3 days, just like ours. There's blood at the end of this week. This time next year, we're all going to know someone touched by this. We'll all have a story of loss. To me, this story of Abraham and Isaac, as well as Christ's mandate, is impossible to do ourselves. Our whole lives are driven by grasping or avoiding, desiring or fearing. Agape is the relationality that holds with an open hand. The Apostle Paul said that agape hopes all things, which is a fascinating way of saying hopelessness. Hopes all things, not a specific thing. Hopes what happens. The platitude you have heard is that if you love something, let it go. That's what Abraham did. And that's why his name in Hebrew means kingdoms, Father of nations. We don't get to pick when and where we die. We don't get to pick how this pandemic sweeps over the face of the earth. We don't get to pick when the flowers in our centerpiece wither. The final reading I then chose jumped back to John. When they came for Jesus in that second garden, Jesus said in Greek, ego eimi, which is the same name that God gave Moses at the burning bush. It means an emphatic, I am. This was the 7th and last time that Jesus had said this exact phrase in John's Gospel. 7 for John is the number of completeness. There's 7 colors in the rainbow, 7 musical notes, 7 days of the week, 7 days of creation. This last I am completed an identification of Jesus with the desiring and fearing self. To use more Freudian terms, he put on the ego, our sense of what we each desire and fear, our ability to judge others as moral ends in themselves. And when he said this, they fell on the ground. And after he put on the ego, the Romans took Jesus. And whether they knew it or not, they nailed ego to the cross and killed it. And I think that's powerful and important. The way I try to see with love is to throw aside the notion of free will as best I can in myself and others. I believe that the ancients perceived this too. It's our nature to want to impart ego to ourselves and others as moral ends capable of acting in spite of the story behind us. We want to see through the lens of the knowledge of good and bad. In Eden, it's exactly that knowledge of good and bad that separates us from paradise. It's the knowledge of judgment. God's love in my life is to see my kids in our most frustrating and stressed out moments, and there have been a lot of those recently, and to know that they are exactly as they could and should be right now. They're perfect. I can have visions of their future, but if I don't accept the truth of their present, then I cannot achieve my desires for them. Until I give up hope of difference in this moment and laugh a little, I cannot achieve my hopes for their future. There is a lot coming and going in our lives right now. We're being asked to put a knife to our social relationships and our breakfast dates at Kirby Lane Cafe as a burnt offering to the health of our community. There are things that are outside of our ability to control, and they will likely never be the same. I hope that we can find that moment of empowering acceptance of the necessity of the moment, perfect and complete as it is. Amen. I have a few announcements before we close out the service today. I want you all to know that the services that we record and put up on YouTube or stream on YouTube, both while you're watching them, you can go back and forward up to the present time, obviously. But while you're watching it, you can move around to them. And then after they're completed, they'll all be put up on our YouTube channel and available for you to rewatch or send a link to friends and family that you might want to share with. The second announcement is the Passover blessing. Right after this service, there's a link in the description about how to get to that. And that is not a Passover meal, as we had said last week, but it is actually a blessing that will then allow you to lead into your dinner tonight or bless the meal you've already had. Our Easter service is coming in 3 days. Imagine that. Giving Good Friday tomorrow. And the Easter service is this coming Sunday at 11 o'clock, and there's a link in the email and on our website to that live stream on YouTube as normal. I also wanted to reach out and remind you about the class that I'm planning to teach. It's called Gender in Genesis. And just to give you a few highlights, the Hebrew is a gendered language, and all of the nouns that are in the language have male and female characteristics, and it kind of talks about their concept of the masculine and feminine, and it's totally lost in English. We're going to look at some of that. And so, for example, in Genesis 1, We are made in the image and likeness of God, and the image is masculine and the likeness is feminine. And it's all throughout that you have this kind of combining in creation, these two things in one. And another example is the 7-day creation story, is the most recent story in Genesis. And we'll talk about why that is and what that means and where that came from. So things like that. So if you'd like to join that, it'll start next Wednesday from 8 to 9 or 9:30. And it'll be a virtual meeting on Google Meetup. And it will go for 4 weeks. And if you want to join, please email me at gus, G-U-S, at trinitychurchofboston.org. That's all for the announcements, and now we'll end with a benediction. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things we cannot change, courage to change the things we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Take care of yourselves. I hope for the time that we can be together again in person, and I do my best to hold that hope with an open hand. Go in peace.